And so, the three of them, led by the hyena, the boy, and the goat, had left the motionless woods behind them, and they now waded through a desiccated band of shrubs. Hyena dear, wait a moment. What his eyes are doing reminds me of something. What is it?
How should I know, you son of a green stench?
Look for yourself, with your beautiful, clever face. Turn your head to me, boy. Look, his eyes are full of bits of broken glass. Feel them, hyena. Feel them. They are wet and warm, and both his cheeks are swimming in water. Oh, it reminds me of something, dear. What is it?
How should I know? Speak up, you damn goat, or I'll crack you like a whip.
How the White Lord would love to readjust him. Without knowing quite what he was doing, the boy, in all his weakness, struck out a blow at the goat, but it fell feebly on the creature's shoulder. The creature went on speaking. Don't you remember all those long seasons, those centuries, before we were changed, when our limbs were beastless? We were once
what?
Your beautiful name on your sloping bag. It is wonderful, but it wasn't always there, was it, hyena dear?
Silence! I don't want to remember.
Nor do I, hyena dear, but I do remember little things. Curious little things. I can remember when my brow was smooth and clear.
Who cares about your bloody brow? I said silence!
Hyena dear, pity you're too rough with your friends. Oh, me. Thank you, my love. Bless your long forearms and your splendid mane. Hyena the boy.
Bring him back and I'll skin him.
Hyena dear, he's for the White Lord. I will cuff him. But at the touch of the goat, the boy fell to his knees, like the felling of a tree. Hyena dear, he must not die before the White Lord sees him. Do something. No, kicking him won't help. Pick him up. Pick him up and gallop to the mines, my dear, while I run on ahead and fix him some bread and water.
What for?
He must have something to eat. Mustn't he, dear? And so, Hyena lifted the boy on outstretched arms as though he were a silent sacrifice. Mile after mile they hurtled. Their shadows bellowed behind them. They were like two immemorial legends, while the sun slid out of the sky in a blur of hueless light. Soon they came to that desert of grey space that led down to the mines. They came to a quick and sudden halt. They didn't want to make the same mistakes as other half-beasts had done in the days when they were rebellious, by whispering to one another. They knew from here on out, every sound would be loud in their master's ear, like the crumbling of a web or the hissing of a forest fire. They mounted their words in deathly silence. means. He knows we are here, hyena dear.
Of course, he can smell us by now.
And the boy?
My stomach is turning over.
I will run on ahead with the boy and fix him some supper.
No, you won't. You go alone if you insist. Insolent dustbag. I will acquaint our master. My loins, my terrified loins.
And so, hyena brought the boy along, to the edge of a well of darkness, more like an abyss than anything consciously constructed, placing the boy on the ground.
Hail, white lord of midnight. It is hyena. Hyena who you rescued from the upper void. Hyena who came to love and serve your purposes. Hail.
What do you bring out of the vile sunlight? What have you got for your lord?
A boy, master.
A boy?
Yes, master. Touchless.
Then hyena heard something he had never heard before. A kind of remote throbbing.
Shall I come down, master?
You are strangely kind today. Do come at once. With your exhausted friend. I must say, he is like a breath of fresh air in this place.
I come, master. I shall bring him to you now, to be yours forever.
And so, hyena lifted the boy one last time over his shoulder, where he moaned pitifully, then edging them over that well of darkness, where a chain swung loose. He lowered them, link by link. The lamb sat upright. Never has a creature been more vile, more predatory. In all its stillness, it could not, as of yet, determine such niceties as the age of the captive. But with every yard of descent, one odor was detaching itself, narrowing in the nostrils of the lamb. And soon he knew, with absolute surety, that there was a boy in the shaft. A boy in the shaft, approaching, descending. It was enough to cause the very girders of the mines to coil and twist and spill red rust like sand. It was enough to start exciting echoes, echoes unparented, echoes that cried like demons, echoes delirious, echoes barbaric, echoes of exultation. For the world had forsaken the mines, and time had forgotten them. Yet here was the globe again, in microcosm, a boy in the shaft, something to beat, to break down, to batter, crush as though it were clay, and then to rebuild again. The mines were waking up. Meanwhile, the goat was descending the iron staircase. Why must hyena have all the glory? It was I who found him. Oh, why couldn't we make the presentation together? The boy was no longer in a faint. His head was clear, but his muscles felt like water, and his hunger was keener than ever. Had Hyena looked up, he would have seen a pinprick, the colour of blood, a grain of crimson, the last of the setting sun. But Hyena had no interest in looking up, for he was now within 100 feet of the sanctum of his master. He was about to take his first step, when a dusty-headed creature slewed itself into the pitcher, much to Hyena's surprise. Hail, ever-dazzling lamb, listen to your slave, for I have found him for you in the white dust lands. Subdued him, took from his belt his dagger, brought him forth. There I found Hyena, the foul Hyena, lounging in the sun. Lies, lies. But Hyena and goat were held mid-motion, Hyena's jaws wide open, ready to snap, for the lamb was calling. The boy knew that now, above all, he must pretend to be unconscious or dead. Why do you keep me waiting, gentlemen? Must I tell you to lie on your backs and suffer? Forget your puny rage, my pretty wranglers. It is not you, or the sound of you, that interests me, but the holy human youth. Bring him to me now, the mortal, for my finger itches. What sprung from the throat of the lamb was a cry so excruciatingly shrill that for all their hatred of one another, Hyena and goat clung together in a cesium of fear. The boy lay in a heap. His heart screamed as if someone had pierced it with a needle. But he did not make a sound. This was no mere matter of the lungs or the vocal cords. This had sprung from the utmost pits of evil. A spearhead, a lance, a forerunner of dire menace, all that the lamb had hidden away for those long centuries, had shrilled its way out of the darkness and into the light. Cold horror was returning to the sanctum, the throbbing horror of the will. Once I have run my finger down his brow. Take him from me, feed him, sleep him, and if you should lose him in the mines, I will have you eat one another. This is where the boy went through the darkest hell of all. The long ache of his body was replaced by a disembodied pain, a nausea of the soul, so horrifyingly penetrating, for he was getting closer to that icy aura that hung about the face of the lamb, an aura like death, ghastly in its vitality. The two half-beasts brought him before their master. The little white finger of the lamb came forward like a short, white caterpillar. It seemed to hover in the air as though to savor the moment. And that was enough. That was enough for the lamb to know that what was in front of him was a thing of style, youth, a mortal unbeasted. Take him away. Feed him. Rest him. And when his coma leaves him, return him to me. For he is what your white lord has awaited. His very bones cry out for realignment. His flesh to be reshaped. His heart to be shriveled. And his soul to be fed on fear. Prepare the feast. Forget nothing. My crown, the golden cutlery, the poison bottles, the skulls, the wreaths of ivy, the baskets of nettles, the bones, the shoulder blades, the spines, and the bloody joints. Forget nothing, or by the blindness of my sockets, I will have your hearts out. Take him away. Hyena and goat backed clumsily out of the candlelit vault. The heavy curtains of the sanctum swung shut. Hyena and goat fed the boy from a mashed up tin of bread and water. It was almost lovable, the way they watched him lift his head to the wooden spoon. Their concentration was almost childlike. They laid him to rest. In those moments, before he went to sleep, he stared up at the two strange nurses, and a thought flashed through his mind. If need be, I can outwit them both. Then he turned over and collapsed into a thick and dreamless sleep. After about 5 hours of watching over the sleeping boy, the two sentries got to their feet. There being no reply to Hyena's query as to whether or not they could enter the sanctum, he pulled back the heavy curtains. Peering in, the spines of the books glinted in the low light. The sumptuous red carpet flooded the floor. The high chair was empty. Where was the lamp? And then they saw him, but they did not see him. His back was to them. He was beyond the range of some candles and was all but invisible. It wasn't until they moved a little way to the west that they saw his hands, but they did not see his hands. It was a delirium of movement, for the fermentations of the lamb's mind were of such an order that they could no longer be endured without the aid of the body. There are worlds in which the mind is capable of losing itself, from which there is no return. So the body in its wisdom flies to aid the mind by any means. By means of their speed and agility, those little white fingers held madness at bay. Hyena and goat backed silently from the sanctum, this time filled with an excited fear, for they were to be the witnesses of transmutation. Hyena dear, what was that for?
Because I blowed your purple lips and your hairy belly. What do you think the White Lord will make of him, eh?
Would you like to know what I think? A hair.
No, the White Lord will build a burning cockle from his bones.
Why not a rabbit? Or a porpoise? His skin is so smooth.
No, the White Lord will know. The White Lord will bestialize him.
Then will be 3.
4, you fool.
3. The White Lord is not one of us. He is not one of us. The boy was wide awake. His eyes were alert, like the eyes of a tracker. He had been able to piece together 2 bits of broken words and sentences, a foul and unholy picture. He knew all too well that he was to be sacrificed. But there was a chip of granite at the boy's heart, something obdurate, and with a concentration quite fierce, he repeated his words. He is not one of us. We would be fools to think it, gentlemen. We know better than to trust the lamb. Watch my lips closely. I have great news for you. You shall be kings indeed, for you are...
What's that you say about kings?
Do not interrupt me. I am a courier from another world. I bring you golden words. Where I come from, there is no more fear. What a place to live. This is a place for the worms, not the sons of man. But even the worms and the bats and the spiders avoid this place. This is a home for sycophants, slaves, and fawners. Let it be somewhere free, somewhere splendid. I can give you power in the light of the sun. I can give you pastures and green spaces. I can give you back what was yours before he tampered with your very birthright. As for what you can give me, shall I tell you?
What can we give you?
Yes, dear. Do tell your... The goat never finished his sentence, for the curtains of the sanctum swung open, and something trotted through, something unnaturally white, moving with the nimbleness and the delicacy of a dancer. The White Lord came rapidly upon them. The 2 half-beasts were frozen to the ground where they stood. The boy, though he could not understand the meaning of this seemingly innocent note, did see that the 2 half-beasts were no longer of use to him, but equally, they were of no use to their master. Choosing his moment wisely, he slipped off his shoes. Pushing past Hyena, he pulled his dagger, a long, thin, deadly yard of steel, and dived into the shadows, his sword brandished, tiptoeing. But the lamb followed his movements with horrible deliberation. Where is the feast? The feast during which I was to begin my conquest of the human youth. The 2 half-beasts fell to the ground, crumbling in a kind of decay. They were already the relics of a travesty of life, and now they were nothing more. crawling towards their white lord. The boy watched, his soul wretched. When I kiss you, you will not die. What I will give you is pain, for death is too gentle. You have spoken of me, and that is treachery. You have spoken to the boy, and he was mine from the first word. You have not prepared the feast, so what I will give you is pain. Come, come and be kissed, that the pain may begin. Do not think there is anything you can do. Your nature is drifting from you. Your strength is leaving you. You are becoming mine. No! No, 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 you tickling devil! Do not shout. My empire is hollow and empty. Your shouting will not help you. Instead, look to your arm. Just then, the boy fell beneath the gaze of the tyrant. His arm swung out, the fingers curled unnaturally. He tried to move his hand, but nothing would happen. He tried to retreat, but his feet would not obey. Yet his head was clear. He knew he had to break the spell over him. Placing the sword on the ground, silently, he searched in his pocket for anything. Coins! Lobbing them in the air! They came down, crashing behind the head of the tyrant, pulling his gaze with him. For a momentary flash of a second, the boy felt the oppressive weight around him open up. All around him were those dazzling curls, sparkling like frost. There were no bones, no organs. The head lay in two halves. There was nothing in the nature of a brain, just empty, horrifyingly empty. Out of the intense darkness came two ancient old men, one with a sloping back, the other with a sideways shuffle. They did not speak to each other. They did not speak to the boy, nor he to them. The three of them made their way through that yawning curtain of silence, through cold galleries, up mine shafts, and into the sickening day. They journeyed on, and at the edge of the white dust, our three pilgrims parted ways, each to his own direction. There were no goodbyes. The boy wandered on, somewhere between life and death, leaving only footprints in the white dust behind him. When he reached the bank, innumerable hands awaited him. Stumbling onto the raft, they pushed him back upstream. Crashing on the opposite bank, his senses were startled. He made his way, footing the ground, through the night, the woods, and in an old abandoned courtyard where he could go no further. He sat, a stone wall at his back, staring up. He saw the castle in all its magnificence. For the last time in this story, his eyes fell heavy with sleep.